looked down, the river was racing below our living room window. That's when I really went into a panic.
Oh my God.
Within a couple of hours, it went from nothing to 4 feet of water.
This storm system was stalled right over us. When was it going to end?
We're in front of a dam, and they were very concerned that if they didn't release the water, it was going to break.
I'm up on the roof. All of a sudden, down the main street comes this big, dirty, filthy dump truck. It looked like our way out.
Holy.
As temperatures rise all around the globe, natural disasters are becoming more violent and more frequent. Extreme weather survivors have captured the intensity and the magnitude of these events. These are the first-hand accounts of a planet going rogue. On Wednesday, June 19th, 2013, torrential rains trigger the worst flood in Alberta's history. It became known as the Flood of Floods.
There it is.
Over 100,000 people are forced out of their homes, and 5 lives are lost. The destructive power and speed of the floodwaters caught everyone by surprise, including meteorologist David Spence.
I had no idea the enormity of what was to come. Sure, we saw heavy rain coming, but the full consequences of that heavy rain, I don't think we realized at that point.
Well, there's a little bit of lightning going on close by. It's not directly over me. Oh, almost over me. Look at the snow.
Up in the Rocky Mountains, layers of snow that have accumulated over a long, hard winter are still melting.
Somewhere just south of Canmore, and it is just freaking storming out here. So it's raining like crazy. All the little creeks are swelling up. You can see on the roadside there, all the little ditches are, mudding up with water. And
the runoff from the melting snow pours into Cougar Creek in Canmore, where John Marriott lives.
It was just incredible. There was all of a sudden water in there, a couple feet worth of water in there. And we were quite excited, thinking, wow, never seen Cougar Creek actually flowing before. So took a couple of videos and went to bed and didn't really think anything else of it.
What John doesn't know is that southern Alberta is about to get slammed by a perfect storm of powerful and diverse weather systems.
June 13th, I noticed that there was a big low-pressure system in the Pacific, off the west coast. And these things develop all the time, but this one was just hanging out there, and it stayed out there for several days. And then it made a connection with the jet stream and started to move to the east. And then it hits terrain, it hits the foothills and the mountains, and that causes the air to move up. Added to that, we had something called an atmospheric river. That atmospheric river drew some moisture all the way from the Gulf of Mexico, connecting with this circulation, and it's just like the low-pressure system itself. When that moisture goes up the slope, it rises, cools, condenses, and generates even more rainfall.
Good morning, Rob Murray here. A local state of emergency has been declared in Canmore. Sorry, give me a second to catch my breath. I was right upstairs. Whew.
I got dressed really quickly, ran out the door, and got to the radio station, ran up the stairs, turned on the microphone, and breathlessly just started saying, "State of emergency, here we go."
Canmore, Alberta, located about 100 kilometers west of Calgary, sits at the edge of the Banff National Park in the Rockies. The town, elevation about 1,400 meters, is home to over 13,000 residents.
Banks of Cougar Creek are unstable. Please stay away from Cougar Creek.
Instead of the creek being 50 yards away from us, suddenly it was 10 yards away from it was almost right at our fence line. And we all of a sudden realized, holy cow, this is serious. It was a bit surreal because we're looking at the creek and we're trying to decide, how fast is it eating away at these banks? How much time do we have?
The runoff that was starting to occur in the mountains was already affecting towns in the mountains in the foothills, towns like Canmore, where Cougar Creek, which is normally a pretty dry stream bed, all of a sudden is full of water and property is getting destroyed.
I cannot believe this, man. It's insane.
And then sort of 7:38, things really started taking a turn for the worse, and it started eating away into our backyard.
I
I put in a call to my insurance company at 8 a.m. They phoned me back at 8:01. As soon as they opened and said, you're actually not covered under insurance.
This is unbelievable devastation. I cannot believe it. These houses are all screwed.
I remember this moment. I walked into my living room and I looked down, and right below me the river was racing, literally below our living room window. And I thought, I got to get out of here. I should not be standing here. And that's when I think we both really went into a panic. We thought we were going to lose our house at that point. And I just turned around and walked straight out of the house.
Our planet is in turmoil, and I'm watching it with my own eye. Like, this is a 100-year flood. This stuff doesn't happen. This is just unbelievable. I cannot believe it.
It is flowing like crazy. There is some major erosion on the banks. And wow, I've never seen it flowing like this before. So again, town of Canmore has declared a state of local emergency.
The first call I made was to my wife, like, you have to leave. You have to go now. Pack up a bag, get the dog, the cat, our 2-year-old child at the time, and just go. It was absolutely pouring rain. Not only was Cougar Creek flowing, but pretty much any mountain creek around here were raging torrents that were carving a path of destruction through roads, highways, anything in their path.
Highway 40 in Kananaskis closed in a couple of sections. North end of Kananaskis Village, another the south end at Fortress Junction.
Oh no, this is no good. I don't even think we can get into the town.
Toronto-based Nick Savarna and his business partner Tim Rydell are driving to Banff for work.
While we were near Canmore, we started to notice water going over the highway, torrential downpour. It was ripping down trees, bringing trees along the side, and it's actually going to wash it out.
Doesn't look too good. Oh no.
We came up to a wall of vehicles, and we were told to get off the highway because it was about to be washed out.
Apparently there's a huge slide. He doesn't know whether the slide was west of Banff, but he says we can try going up here and cutting across and taking Highway 40. But he says it might be, it might be closed too.
All the bridges are blown out. There's bulldozers in the creek beds trying to widen them so that the water has somewhere to funnel through. And there's still water literally just pumping out of these mountains like a broken faucet.
Banff and Canmore are situated near the top of the Bow River Basin. The Bow River usually runs across the slopes of the Rockies, through Calgary, and drops down, running almost all the way to Medicine Hat. But now the water flow is growing so quickly, it's spilling over its banks and is beginning to destroy the Trans-Canada Highway, the main road connecting the communities of southern Alberta.
The Trans-Canada currently closed both east and westbound at Cougar Creek. Town of Canmore has declared a state of local emergency.
Hey, how do we get back to Calgary?
At this point, you don't.
The road's closed?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, at this point, we're kind of stuck, and we got a couple of washouts at this end we're working on, trying to clear it up, so at this point, you can't.
So the only place basically we can go is back in there?
Yeah.
So at this point, we can neither go back to Calgary nor go on to Banff. Right now we're heading towards Cougar Creek. It's still raining very hard. It doesn't appear that it's going to stop anytime soon. This is the first natural disaster that I've experienced, and it was just really hard to feel stuck in one place. You're just under Mother Nature and under her will, and you just have to take it.
The highways are washed out. People cannot get in or out of town. And we don't know how bad this is going to get.
And that's exactly what David Spence is trying to predict.
David Spence is in our Skywatch Weather Center. David, more rain on the way, but where does it stand right now?
The heaviest rain still to come will be in the area that least needs it. So that would be the Canmore-Bow Valley region. But in the news broadcast, they can tell you what's happening and what has happened. It's my job to tell you what's going to happen. And when you have a weather event like this, and you know that you've already missed a lot of the impact by forecasting a third of the rain that's going to fall, You're concentrating really hard and working really hard to get it right and make sure the information from there on in is correct, accurate, saves property and saves lives.
Before the Bow River monitoring gauges blew out, they recorded peak flow rates of about 1,000 cubic meters of water per second. Now the water is flowing into adjacent rivers, including the Highwood River.
And that river just happens to take some of its twists and turns right through the town of High River. So water wants to flow in a straight line, but if your riverbank is turning, the water's going to go over the riverbank and into the town.
This is an Alberta emergency alert. Highwood River has caused serious flooding in High River. If you are in the affected area, evacuate immediately.
Oh my God.
A mandatory evacuation is ordered. But for many High River residents, including Jonathan Reimer, his sister, and his dad, it's too late.
There is a mandatory evacuation, and we get into the truck, and at that point, the water's already half a foot up the tires.
We were driving, and we heard of lots of cars stalling and people having to escape and get onto their roofs, and the water was rushing in fast.
Uh-oh. No catcher. Yeah, this is getting deep. I don't want to be stranded in a vehicle.
It was just like the muddiest water you've ever seen, and it was everywhere. If you've ever seen a really, really dirty river, that's what it looked like, except it was everywhere, as far as the eye could see water.
And downtown at the Sobeys grocery store, where Jen Keys just started her shift, the situation is no better.
Everywhere you look, there's water, and it's fast. Like, it's not just slowly seeping in water. This water's coming fast. Within a couple of hours, it went from nothing to 4 feet of water. It's just coming and coming and coming, and there's just no end to it. We're watching our vehicles in the parking lot, the water get higher and higher. By that time, the water in the parking lot was at least hip level. So we kind of did what we could to barricade the front door.
But when the water starts pouring in, they know they're in trouble.
It was scary, it was surreal, it was, I don't know, so many emotions. Everybody was speechless. What do you say?
On June 20th, 2013, the flood of floods is turning large parts of southern Alberta into a disaster zone.
This is unbelievable devastation.
Overflowing rivers rush down the slopes of the Rockies, destroying critical infrastructure and thousands of homes. And for Jonathan Reimer and his family, there seems to be no way out of High River.
That's blocked off out there. Yeah, I don't think we're going anywhere.
By the time we were done driving in circles, it was another half foot up. It had risen for every minute we were out there, it had gone up another 2 or 3 centimeters.
Yeah, I think we should turn back while we still can.
As we were driving, none of us felt right to continue forward, and there were lots of other vehicles out there trying to get away, and it just didn't feel right that we would continue on, and so we turned around.
Yeah, we're stuck.
Center Avenue, right near 3rd Street Northwest, is completely taken over by the river. There's a lot of water here, and it's still coming. It's still getting higher. Okay, if you're in High River, get out.
Holy cow.
Powerless in the grips of such a deluge, the residents' only refuge is on top of their roofs.
Water's pushing 4 feet up the doorway on each side coming through. I scrambled up the stairs, and now I'm up on the roof, and here we are standing now looking over the town that's completely gone.
That is crazy.
We went upstairs. We didn't know if somebody was coming to get us or what was going on.
Good morning, the Eagle.
Oh, this is Sonia calling from High River.
Oh, hi.
Our town is in a complete panic of a state.
With such a late warning, High River residents are in shock. It seemed no one had seen this coming.
In the mountains where the Highwood River starts, that was the area of the greatest rainfall. That was the area where they had 300 millimeters of rain, and all that came down the Highwood and had nowhere to go but to flood the town.
First responders and other members of the community initiate search and rescue operations for the 13,400 residents and visitors in the town. 150 of them from rooftops.
There was people getting rescued from other businesses around and stuff, and they were rescuing them in like dump trucks and front-end loaders and whatever they could, right?
I'm up on the roof and I realize we're not getting down. There's nowhere to go. And all of a sudden, just like the cavalry coming, this big dump truck comes down the street, plowing through the water. It looked like our way out. Everyone was dirty and muddy and wet, but we know we're getting out of there.
Jeez, eh?
This wasn't in the plans this morning.
We tried to flag people down, and we actually caught the attention of a manure truck that was going down the streets as well. So they were waving at us, so we climbed down.
I'm seeing windows knocked out of buildings. It's a complete shambles. There's people sitting in their stores on their counters waiting to get out because they couldn't get out the doors. The pressure of the water was too hard to get out.
Well, there's somebody upstairs there.
I don't know where higher ground is.
All of the stores, there's water in them. The manure truck is still picking up more people. And there's brand new SUVs that you can just watch the water as it fills the interiors. And we realized this is really bad.
And then we heard helicopters. Somebody went out and we flagged the helicopter down to let them know that we were in the store. And then we started sending people to the back to go up the roof. Well, I'm in the helicopter and I'm looking out the window and I see dirty water everywhere. That's all you see. And there's no definition. I don't see vehicles. I'm not seeing roads. I don't see sidewalks. I don't see parks. I just see, everywhere I look, I just see water. And I see water rushing where water shouldn't be. That's when I think to myself, holy crap, like this is crazy. This is bad.
But it was about to get a lot worse.
People were losing their property. People were losing their homes to flooding. So people had lost their lives by this point. When was it going to end?
When the low-pressure system that originated in the Pacific moved into northern Montana and up into southern Alberta, it was blocked by a high-pressure system to the north. Meteorologists call this phenomenon a Rex block.
It just kept dumping moisture, tons of moisture on southern Alberta. I mean, this storm system was stalled right over us. When was it going to move out? This is when I first realized the rain is not going to stop anytime soon, and that this flood is going to intensify, and then it was going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I knew, you know, this is more than a Canmore story. This is going to be a Calgary story as well, because these rivers do flow fast, and it wasn't going to take very long for the floodwaters that were in Canmore to reach Calgary.
Calgary is one of Canada's largest cities. Once nicknamed Cowtown by cattle farmers and cowpokes, Calgary exploded during the oil boom of the 1970s. Today, Calgary is a cosmopolitan city of skyscrapers and industry, with a population of over 1 million. But Cowtown still celebrates its roots every July with the massive Calgary Stampede.
Downtown is a very low-lying area. We have Mission District, the Stampede grounds, all very close to the Elbow River. Now, many of the people living in those areas had also been through earlier flooding. There was a flood in 2005. And I was hoping they weren't thinking this was going to be another 2005, because this was going to be much worse.
The flood of 2005 destroyed 40,000 homes in the city, and this was expected to be worse.
The water coming under the Bow River Bridge is rising pretty high right now.
Soon this will be all underwater.
Yeah, it's insane.
On June 20th, 2013, Alberta's superflood devastated 1/4 of the province.
These houses are all screwed.
Torrential rains, melting snow, and overflowing rivers forced southern Alberta to declare a state of local emergency in 9 different localities. And as a raging river of angry floodwaters rushes towards Calgary, John Marriott in Canmore wonders if his house will survive.
We are going to stay here. We feel it's safer for us here than going downtown and being just part of the chaos down there. You know, it kind of also allowed us to keep watch on our house a bit, which we were concerned about. We kind of wanted to be there if it went.
It's still raining, and I can still sort of see through the cracks between the houses that the river's still going pretty strongly, and it's right against this side, running up against all of our houses.
We were able to get some news out to people, both family and friends. A person up the street ended up getting us to go up to their house, and we went up there and took some stuff out of their safe that they did not want to lose.
Back to our top story now, and major flooding across southern Alberta tonight. Mandatory evacuations in some communities. David Spence standing by in our Skywatch Weather Center.
By the time we got to the 5 o'clock broadcast, we had reports coming in from all over southern Alberta. If you are in this area, you're in for a lot more rainfall. The rainfall warning still in effect.
As the Bow River overflows, rushing high waters tear through many small communities and resort villages on its banks, including Kananaskis, Wipers Lake, and Bragg Creek, population 454. And everyone knows Calgary is next.
The Bow is in a fairly steep valley. Much of the city, thankfully, is well above the level that the Bow River would ever flood. But downtown Calgary, some of the older parts of the city, very vulnerable to flooding.
Low-lying neighborhoods near the Bow and Elbow rivers are under mandatory evacuation. Doug Griffiths is in charge of emergency management.
I was thinking the most important message we're going to need to get out is that people need to comply with the request to evacuate. It's saving lives that's the most important part in those first few hours.
As a last resort, authorities reach out to the companies overseeing the hydroelectric dams along the river.
There's 11 dams along the Bow River. And so the concept was, let's just catch more of the water as it comes flowing through. Except they are retention dams, not detention dams.
Detention dams relocate water, but retention dams hold water on a more permanent basis. Now they're filled to the brim, and engineers need to decide if they can hold the water or release it.
Here we are with a flood coming, and there's no easy decision. If you let water go, you save the dam, but the devastation could be magnitudes much worse downstream. But if you hold it and the dam breaks, you amplify it even further.
My concern at that time was, is the Ghost Lake Dam going to hold this water? Is the Ghost Lake Dam going to prevent flooding in Calgary? I didn't know, because it's not a huge dam.
The Ghost Lake Dam is the closest dam upriver from Calgary. It's a hydroelectric dam, generating about 51 megawatts of electricity a year, enough to power over 60,000 homes. The engineers shut the gates and halt the water. With the Bow River gushing at a rate of 2,300 cubic meters of water per second, the reservoir is now full, and engineers have no choice but to release some water onto the spillways.
This is an Alberta emergency alert. City of Calgary has issued an overland flood alert. This is a mandatory evacuation. Evacuate immediately.
In Calgary, Colleen Baird is not taking any chances.
They're saying it's going to happen. The water will rise and cover a good part of the island, and we need to start moving animals.
The Calgary Zoo was built on an island in the middle of the river, and its many residents include large mammals and dangerous predators.
We had tiger cubs, we had a mom, and then another male, so we had lots of tigers. So our vet team had to come down and start to anesthetize 6 tigers, and it takes time. We had, lions, we have snow leopards, and so we had to immobilize a lot of large cats on that day. We have to find crates. We have to catch animals. We need nets. We need X amount of crates for these species. We need so many crates over here. And as the day was happening, it was going so fast. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna take us way longer than I thought.
As night falls over the province, Colleen is still moving her animals to safety. Just past 1 in the morning, she finally gets a chance to take a brief nap.
I'm sleeping on my cot, and the phone rang. It was our facilities director, and he said, Colleen, what does it look like out there? I get outside, and I see, for the first time, water, and a lot of water.
And while they moved as many animals off the island as they could, some are still in their enclosures.
We went to the building where the giraffe and hippos are being kept, and I noticed that the window's broken below the water. And I was like, oh my goodness, a hippo could escape here. A hippo could leave this building and come and share the same space where I am in this boat.
A massive and unrelenting rainfall has swollen the rivers and creeks of southern Alberta. Torrential runoffs from the Rocky Mountains submerged small towns along the Bow River. Now downtown Calgary is under attack. And on the morning of June 21st, Doug Griffiths surveys the damage from the air.
I have never seen so much water in my life. It was as though there were high-rises popping out of a lake. You know, I've seen flooding in small communities before, but to see an entire downtown core of a city under 10, 12 feet of water, the Saddle Dome was a third full of water. It felt apocalyptic.
Downtown is shut down, and I mean shut down. There is the Saddle Dome underwater. Apparently up to 10 rows up are underwater inside.
The Saddle Dome, home to the NHL's Calgary Flames and the 1988 Winter Olympics, suffers major damage. The floodwaters submerged the dressing rooms, the ice plant, ice resurfacing machines, and the kitchens. And everything on the Saddle Dome event level, the nerve center for games and concerts, is a total loss.
We were aghast for the first while and in shock.
At the Calgary Zoo, Colleen Baird has moved as many animals off the island as she could, but the big animals still remain locked in their enclosures.
I couldn't get into the building where the giraffe and hippos are being kept. So my colleague and I, we went to the back of the building to see if we can look into some of the windows. And just out of chance, a hippo head appeared in the window. And I had that wonderful moment where I'm like, oh, thank goodness, the hippo is alive. And then he goes underwater, and I noticed that the window's broken below the water. And I felt at that point, a hippo could escape here. A hippo could leave this building and come and share the same space where I am in this boat.
As well as being rather large, hippos are also rather aggressive, especially when defending their territory.
At that point, I didn't know where the hippo was, and my colleague and I, we had to act. This hippo needed to stay in this building. We had this container full of straw, the metal container. We were able to get it in position, open the doors, sink it, flood it, and secure it in front of that window so that a hippo could not come out that window. So he was contained and in the building. At that point, we knew that we were safe, and we knew the hippos were secure.
"26 Calgary neighborhoods are under mandatory evacuation. But a few good neighbors are staying behind and volunteering to help.
Shima, look at this. It's okay, we should just go.
Roham Palavan and his wife patrol the Rideau community.
When I saw the old lady with a walker up to her waist in water, my heart sank.
Do you need help?
This way.
The water was so cold for a young and healthy man. I couldn't imagine what it was like for her. And I couldn't imagine even how far she had walked, because it was in the middle of the parking lot where I picked her up. So we brought the first two people to the edge of the shore and we let them out of the truck. And then we drove back into where I saw another building.
My husband there trying to get my mom out of that building. She's 80-some years old lady there. Okay, we're Give good. her a ride back here. Sure, of course. He's right there in the yellow jacket. Okay, Just get her don't worry.
We started ferrying people out maybe at around 11:30 or 12 before I knew it was 4 p.m. And we were wet and we were cold.
To make matters even worse, the water is not just coming from up above, it's also coming up from down below.
It's overflowing here into the street.
One of the major issues that we were facing was the sewer backing up, clogging streets and into homes. It became a public health issue. Every city's set up in a very similar way. The sewer water gets cleaned, it gets drained into the river, but when the river fills up because of the flood, it backs up, and then it's got nowhere to go, and you combine that with the stormwater coming into the stormwater system, and it meets in the middle and creates massive pressure. And you wind up with a situation where we had actually heard of manhole covers just flipping off like dimes because the pressure was so great.
Millions of gallons of sewage.
That is raw sewage. It stinks.
Kit Kaiser experienced the full destructive power of the water when he checked on his grandparents' house.
The first part was getting into the house, just getting the door open. Everything's warped at that point, and you're trying to push in, and there's water inside the house. But then you walk inside, and everything that's not attached is moved, and a big countertop, it was flipped over and tossed on the floor. Nice layer of mud everywhere.
It's up. The flow of water is unstoppable, and all the authorities can do is to give residents advance notice of the impending disaster.
There was no way we were going to be able to stop the water that day. Getting people to safety was the most important aspect, and it was for those that afternoon that were flooding, but also to give advance warning to the communities downriver that the flood was still coming to hit.
Look at this, it is an ocean.
It is an ocean.
It is an ocean. Did I get off this bridge?
Yeah, hurry.
Downstream from Calgary at the bottom of the Bow River Basin, the people of Medicine Hat know they're sitting directly in the path of the oncoming flood. And many people, like Damien Voisin, prepare for the worst.
Just the community getting together. I'm sorry the video's shaky. That's my hands shaking. So I've been going steady for the last 5 hours.
So we're watching on the news this devastation that happened in High River and how Calgary's being affected by this, and they're getting hit pretty hard. So we've come to the realization it's coming here. We better get ready because, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. They have no idea how bad it's going to be.
Evacuation order, so let's get as much done to help people out as we can.
A bunch of people came. It was great. Some people were just bringing in coffee and donuts because they couldn't do the physical part, so that was their part. And other people were just helping with the filling of the sandbags. Other people were carting them to where they had to be. And we were helping one house, the other house. It didn't matter. We were just helping each other. We started sandbagging the front door, and then we were doing the basement windows and everything else that we could figure out and kind of get it as best as we could and make sure everything was covered around the foundation.
And now we're just plugging up the drains as best we can to prevent it from backflowing into the house.
I've read and I've seen, even on the news, they're talking about it, where the biggest problem was the sewer backup and people's houses being full of, you know, not very good stuff. And that's the worst stuff to have to clean up, and does the most damage.
So we got sinks plugged. Oh, we gotta do this sink still. And we got the toilet plugged. Got a sandbag on the bottom drain.
Something. It might not stop it completely, but it might prevent more damage than necessary.
Hopefully, this will be enough. If it's not enough, then I don't know what to say. I don't even want to think about it.
With the floodwaters speeding towards Medicine Hat, Damien can only hope his work is not in vain. A torrential rainfall over southern Alberta has triggered the worst flooding in the history of the province.
Our planet is in turmoil. Like, this is a 100-year flood. This is just unbelievable. I cannot believe it.
But there's no denying it. This flood is a dangerous killer. Under mandatory evacuation, thousands have already fled their homes, and the floodwaters continue to rise.
Holy cow.
Look at this. It is an ocean. Dad, get off this bridge.
Yeah, hurry.
With homes and now critical infrastructure at risk, Doug Griffiths, the Minister of Municipal Affairs in Alberta, calls for reinforcements.
We had the Army who had joined us with 2,200 troops. We had the Alberta Sheriff's Department and the RCMP coordinating for search and rescue. We had a massive amount of personnel had come together from all sorts of emergency services across the province, which made the rescue efforts very successful.
Helicopters are dispatched, including a Lockheed C-130 Hercules, to help evacuate people stranded by the floodwaters. Emergency operations are in full force when meteorologist David Spence realizes there's a break in the weather system.
At that point, we started to see the storm starting to move. So not only were we able to go on the air and give people the information they needed, we also gave them the information they wanted to hear, which was that the storm was finally going to pull out.
Well, the news from the Skywatch Weather Center is all good this morning. All the warnings have ended, not only in Alberta, but in all of Canada. There are no weather warnings.
So it was kind of a cathartic situation that we were finally able to say, hey, this thing's winding down. This thing's coming to an end.
Under sunny skies in Canmore, Nicholas Savarna and his business partner Tim Rydell are on the move. They got a tip that one side of the Trans-Canada Highway had been opened, and local police were providing escorts for a few small groups of vehicles headed towards Calgary.
Woo! Are we going home?
Yep. Man, what luck! What luck! All right, here we go. Here we go.
Being able to get on that highway and be escorted out of the mountains towards Calgary, we're jumping for joy. We're slapping the steering wheel. We're excited. It was just pure happiness at this point and relief.
But not everyone has somewhere to go. When the Bow River spilled its banks, several large Siksika First Nation communities an hour east of Calgary were devastated.
They had over 1,000 people that needed to be evacuated, if I recall, and 200 homes that were destroyed because they were down near the river too. And they were just as devastated as any of the other communities that we worked with.
The flood destroyed or damaged 1,000 Medicine Hat homes. But when the rising waters stopped short of expected levels, some owners caught a lucky break.
It looks like the water didn't even touch it. Looks like it was all for naught, which is better than frickin' anything I can imagine.
I mean, you feel bad for the houses that were affected, but it wasn't, you know, up to your second story or the whole floor, you know, taken out or anything like that. It was mostly basements and, you know, some people's backyards, but not just total devastation.
But no, this is awesome news. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Not everyone was so lucky. Authorities confirmed that 4 people lost their lives in the disaster. And a 33-year-old woman, Jackie Brocklebank from High River, was still missing. For 2 days, Jackie's family searched the evacuation centers in and around High River in vain. Then Jackie's mother received word that her daughter's body had been found. She'd lost her life in the floodwaters.
My understanding is that the water came and Jackie got hit by debris.
Just a few hours before she was killed, Jackie saved the life of a friend.
I think it's really important that High River remember the lives that were lost, and she was an important part of this town.
Jackie's death raised the death toll to 5. As waters slowly recede in Calgary, they tell a different story in High River. The town, named after the Highwood River that runs through it, is up to its neck in filthy, stagnant floodwater.
With the immediate disaster behind us, we had to try and hire the right team to come in and do the cleanup.
Commercial divers, bulldozers, and truckloads of gear are brought in from all over the country, including some high-capacity mobile industrial pumps.
We had worked out a strategy with the Emergency Operations Center in High River and the crews to build berms to divide up the community so that we could start to pump it out section by section, so we could at least start to free up some homes so that people would have the chance to go back and assess the damage.
High-volume pumps can suck in 45,000 liters a minute. Smaller pumps can suck 3,400 liters a minute. Combined, these pumps push out 400 million liters a day. But despite all this technology, some houses could not be saved.
There were a lot of very unhappy people. They felt devastated and they wanted to go home, but many of them, there was no home to go back to. And that was probably the most emotionally challenging time, not just for me, but for the entire team, for police officers, because we knew we were in it for a long time.
Weeks would pass before the financial costs of the Alberta floods would be known. But it would take more than time to heal the scars of those who lost more than they could bear. Two weeks after the worst flood in Alberta's history, some residents are allowed to return home. And John Reimer and his family are among the first to return to High River.
Everything is caked in layers and layers of mud. The railroad running beside the road, it had been pushed over by the force of the water and was now a fence. We head up the stairs to our house, open the door. First thing we notice is the stench. It smells like sewage and dirt and rotting meat. We had two fridges, one downstairs, one upstairs, and our freezer. We have to empty them out. We get to work right away. We're hauling things out. We rip out the carpet as soon as we can. And so we start tearing down. The ceiling was completely waterlogged because it had all evaporated.
The government of Alberta declared the flood of 2013 to be the worst in the history of the province.
And a lot of these people were not covered by insurance. So that perhaps was the most difficult part of the recovery, is just seeing the people who truly did suffer and knowing that it was going to be a very long time before they were able to come out of it. And I'm not sure everybody's come out of it all these years later.
It became known as the Flood of Floods. Over 100,000 people were forced from their homes. From the city of Calgary to the suburbs and the small towns across the southern reaches of the province, the floodwaters upended, damaged, or destroyed almost everything they touched. Claude Ferdin's house in the town of Exshaw was demolished. The Ferdins decided to look for a bargain among the homes the government had just bought and marked for demolition in the floodplains of High River.
There was an auction, and the opening bid was around $100 or $200 per house. So I talked with my wife, and we started to look at the idea of moving the whole house.
With a low purchase price, the Ferdins could afford to move the house to a flood-safe neighborhood and also pay for the renovations.
If we continue to build homes in floodways, if we continue to build berms that just accelerate the water downstream and cause more disaster somewhere else, all we're doing is feeding the beast. And if we feed the beast, it's just going to get bigger and the disasters will get worse.
The Ferdins moved their house 150 kilometers to high grounds in the town of Exshaw, a place they now call home.
It feels really good to have come this far, and to bring a house like this all the way from High River was something that I think sounded crazy to start with and feels crazier now that it's done. But we're really proud of where we've come and the result of what we've finished.
Calgary Stampede Park was almost completely submerged by the floodwaters. With less than 2 weeks to go before opening day of the 101st Stampede, organizers orchestrated a massive recovery effort, and the rodeo, exhibition, and festival opened on time. Proof to all that Cowtown had come roaring back.
We call this a 1 in 100 year flood because a flood like this theoretically happens once every 100 years, a generational event. Chances are people who went through the flood are never going to see something like that in their lives. But there are no guarantees. Those are just odds. And odds can be beaten. And this is the kind of odds you don't want to beat.